This video did not appear in front of you randomly. It showed up at a very specific moment, right when something inside your life is starting to shift in ways you may not fully understand yet. There is a quiet change happening beneath the surface, and even if everything around you looks the same, something within you is no longer willing to stay the same. That restless feeling you have been carrying, that sense that your current path is no longer enough, that subtle pressure building in your thoughts late at night. It is not meaningless. It is a signal, and most people ignore this signal. They scroll past it, distract themselves, or convince themselves that nothing is really changing. But a small number of people stop at the right time, and they listen. Right now, you are one of them. There is a pattern that repeats in human life, but very few people are aware of it while it is happening. Before every major transformation, there is confusion. Before clarity, there is discomfort. Before growth, there is a phase where everything feels uncertain, slow, and even frustrating. Psychologists have studied this phase for years, and it is often described as a transition state where the old identity begins to break down before the new one is fully formed. During this time, people feel lost, disconnected, and unsure of what comes next. But what many do not realize is that this phase is not a sign that life is falling apart. It is a sign that life is rearranging itself. You may have noticed small changes recently. Things that once excited you no longer hold the same meaning. Conversations feel different. Your daily routine feels heavier than before. There is a quiet awareness growing inside you, telling you that you cannot continue the same way. This awareness is not random. It is the beginning of a shift that can completely redefine the direction of your life. Studies on behavioral change show that people often experience internal resistance right before ing the biggest improvements in their lives. That resistance feels like doubt, fear, or even exhaustion, but in reality, it is the mind preparing for a new version of reality. There are also lesser-known patterns that most people overlook. During periods of transformation, the brain starts filtering information differently. You begin to notice ideas, opportunities, and perspectives that were always there but never stood out before. It feels subtle, almost invisible, but it changes how you see everything. At the same time, your tolerance for things that do not align with your future begins to decrease. This can affect relationships, goals, and even your sense of identity. Many people misunderstand this phase and think they are losing direction, when in fact, they are starting to find it. In this video, you are going to understand what is really happening when your life begins to change. You will learn the hidden signs that indicate a transformation is already in motion. You will see why discomfort is not something to avoid, but something that often appears right before a breakthrough. You will also discover why most people fail to recognize these moments, and how that causes them to stay stuck in the same cycle for years. More importantly, you will learn how to recognize your current position in this process, so you can move forward with awareness instead of confusion. There is also a deeper layer to all of this. Change does not happen suddenly, even though it may feel that way when everything finally shifts. It builds slowly, through small internal changes that go unnoticed until they reach a certain point. Neuroscience suggests that repeated thoughts and emotions reshape neural pathways over time, preparing the brain for new behaviors and decisions. This means that long before your external life changes, your internal world has already started adapting. By the time you notice the shift clearly, the process has already been happening for a while. This is why timing matters. Not everyone will connect with this message. Some people will see it and move on without thinking twice. Others will feel a brief curiosity but ignore it. But for a few, this moment will feel different. It will feel relevant, almost personal. That is because awareness only appears when the mind is ready to receive it. And when that happens, even a single idea can change the direction of your life in ways you never expected. If you stay until the end of this video, you will not just understand what you are going through, you will start to see it differently. You will begin to recognize patterns that were invisible before. You will understand why certain feelings keep returning and what they are trying to tell you. And most importantly, you will realize that what feels like uncertainty right now may actually be the beginning of something far more important than you imagined. So take this moment seriously. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, aware way. Pay attention to what resonates with you as you watch. Sometimes, the smallest realization at the right time can create the biggest shift later on. And sometimes, a single video can act as the turning point that helps you finally see what has been right in front of you all along. Welcome to the channel. If this kind of content speaks to you, make sure you subscribe. because what you are about to learn here might come to you exactly when you need it most. There is a weight that has been following you lately, and it is not always loud, but it is always there. It shows up in quiet moments, when everything slows down and your thoughts get louder than usual. You try to focus on your normal routine, but something keeps pulling your attention away. You sit with people, you go through your day, you complete your tasks, but deep inside, there is a strange sense that you are not fully present in any of it. It feels like you are moving, but not really going anywhere. And the hardest part is that you cannot clearly explain why. Nothing is completely broken, yet nothing feels completely right either. That confusion starts to grow slowly, and instead of answers, you find yourself surrounded by more questions. Your mind does not stay quiet anymore. It keeps running in circles, replaying thoughts, creating new ones, then doubting them all over again. You think about your choices, your past, your future, your purpose, and somehow every thought leads to another layer of uncertainty. Even simple decisions start to feel heavier than they should. You question things that you once accepted without thinking. You wonder if you are on the right path, if you are wasting time, if you are missing something important that everyone else seems to understand. Overthinking becomes a constant background noise, and no matter how much you try to distract yourself, it finds a way back. There is also a growing distance between you and the world around you. Conversations feel different. Sometimes you listen, but you do not feel connected to what is being said. You respond, but it feels automatic, like you are following a script you have already memorized. Even the things that once made you feel alive now feel less intense. You try to enjoy them the same way, but something has changed. It is not that you do not care anymore. It is that the feeling is not the same. This creates a quiet frustration because you start wondering what is wrong with you, when in reality, nothing is wrong in the way you think. At the same time, there is a strong desire for something different. You feel it in small moments, like a sudden urge to change your routine, to try something new, to break away from what feels repetitive. But the problem is, you do not know exactly what you are looking for. You want change, but you cannot define it clearly. You want movement, but you are not sure in which direction. This creates a strange situation where you feel both motivated and stuck at the same time. You want to move forward, but you do not know where forward is. All of this creates a quiet tension inside you. It is not dramatic on the outside, but internally it is constant. You keep going through your days, but something feels off in a way that is difficult to describe. It is like your life is asking you to pay attention to something important, but the message is not clear yet. And this is where most people get confused. They assume that this feeling means something is wrong, that they are lost, or that they are falling behind. But what is actually happening is very different from that. This phase you are in is not random. It follows a pattern that many people experience before a major shift in their lives. It is a transition state where your mind starts to detach from what no longer fits you, even before you fully understand what will replace it. It feels uncomfortable because you are standing between two versions of yourself. One version is familiar, predictable, and safe, but it no longer feels right. The other version is unknown, undefined, and unclear, but it is slowly pulling you forward. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of movement. It means that something inside you has started to change, even if your external life has not caught up yet. Your mind is processing new ideas, new possibilities, and new perspectives, but it has not fully organized them into a clear direction. This creates a temporary state of confusion where you feel lost, but in reality, you are in the middle of a shift. There is a reason why things that once felt normal now feel uncomfortable. Your awareness is expanding, and as that happens, your tolerance for things that do not align with your future starts to decrease. This can affect different areas of your life without warning. You may start feeling restless in places where you once felt comfortable. You may notice that certain routines feel repetitive instead of stable. This is not because those things have changed, but because you have. You also start to notice that old habits do not give you the same satisfaction anymore. Things that once helped you relax or escape now feel empty after a while. You might still do them out of habit, but the feeling is not the same. It fades quickly, leaving you with the same underlying restlessness. This is a clear signal that your mind is no longer fully connected to those patterns. It is preparing to move beyond them, even if you have not consciously decided to do so yet. At the same time, your thoughts become deeper and more questioning. You begin to analyze things that you never paid attention to before. You question your goals, your direction, your relationships, and even your identity. This can feel overwhelming because it creates a sense of instability. But this questioning is not a problem. It is part of the process. It is how your mind clears out old assumptions to make space for new understanding. There is also a subtle pull towards something new. It is not always clear or specific, but you feel it in moments of curiosity. You might find yourself interested in ideas, topics, or paths that you never considered before. You might feel drawn to change your environment, your habits, or your way of thinking. This pull is important because it is one of the earliest signs that your direction is starting to shift. Another change that often goes unnoticed is how people around you start to feel different. It is not that they have changed suddenly, but your connection to them might feel slightly off. Some conversations feel less engaging. Some relationships feel distant in a way that is hard to explain. This does not mean you need to push people away, but it does show that your internal world is evolving. As you change, your perception of others also changes, and that can create a temporary sense of distance. All of these signs can happen at the same time or in different moments, but together they form a pattern. A pattern that shows you are not standing still, even if it feels that way. You are in the middle of a process that is slowly reshaping how you think, how you feel, and how you see your life. It is not fast, and it is not always clear, but it is real. This phase can feel uncomfortable because it removes the illusion of certainty. Things that once felt stable now feel uncertain, and your mind tries to hold on to what is familiar. But at the same time, another part of you knows that staying the same is no longer an option. This creates an internal conflict where one side wants comfort and the other side wants growth. Growth does not start with clarity. It starts with discomfort. It starts with the feeling that something is not right, even when you cannot explain it. It starts with questions, not answers, and that is exactly where you are right now. You are not at the end of something. You are at the point where everything begins to shift, even if it does not look like it yet. As this process continues, your awareness will keep expanding. You will start to notice patterns more clearly. You will begin to understand your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. You will see connections between your feelings and your environment that you never noticed before. And slowly, without a sudden moment or a dramatic change, your direction will begin to reveal itself. Right now, it feels like confusion. It feels like being stuck. It feels like not knowing what to do next. But underneath all of that, there is movement. Quiet, steady movement that is preparing you for something different, something that will make sense later, even if it does not make sense now. And as you continue through this phase, the signs will become clearer. The discomfort will start to guide you instead of hold you back. The questions will start to lead you instead of confuse you. And the feeling that something is off will slowly transform into the understanding that something is changing. There is a part of this process that does not get talked about enough, and that is the emotional weight that comes with change. Not the visible kind that people celebrate, but the quiet kind that happens inside when no one else can see it. This is where fear starts to appear, not all at once, but slowly, in small thoughts that grow stronger over time. You begin to notice that moving forward does not just mean gaining something new, it also means leaving something behind, and that realization can feel heavier than expected. Because even if what you are leaving behind no longer feels right, it is still familiar, it is still something you understand, and the unknown, no matter how full of potential it is, does not offer that same sense of certainty. This fear is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it shows up as hesitation. You think about making a change, and then you stop yourself without fully understanding why. Sometimes it feels like doubt. You question whether you are ready, whether you are capable, whether you are making the right decision. Other times it feels like a quiet resistance, where you keep delaying things that you know matter to you. And in many cases, this fear disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait, to stay where you are, to avoid risk, even when a part of you knows that staying the same is what is actually holding you back. One of the deepest fears during this phase is the fear of losing your sense of identity. You have spent so much time becoming who you are right now, building habits, beliefs, routines, and ways of thinking that feel like a part of you. And when change begins, it starts to challenge those things. It asks you to question what you once accepted. It pushes you to step outside of patterns that once defined you. And that can feel like losing a part of yourself, even if that part no longer fits who you are becoming. There is also a fear of losing stability. Even if your current situation is not perfect, it is predictable. You know what to expect. You know how things work. And there is a certain comfort in that, even if it is not fulfilling. Change removes that predictability. It introduces uncertainty. It forces you to step into a space where outcomes are not guaranteed. And for the mind, this can feel threatening, even when the change is positive. This is why growth often feels uncomfortable, not because something is going wrong, but because something is shifting at a deeper level. You are not just changing what you do, you are changing how you think, how you see yourself, and how you relate to the world around you. And that kind of change is not always smooth. It comes with moments of doubt, moments of fear, and moments where you question everything. But this fear is not a sign that you should stop. It is a sign that you are moving in a direction that matters. If nothing was changing, there would be no fear. Everything would feel the same, predictable and stable. The presence of fear means that you are stepping beyond what is familiar. It means that you are entering a space where growth is possible. What makes this phase even more challenging is that it often feels like you are losing yourself before you fully understand who you are becoming. There is a gap between the old version of you and the new one, and during that gap, things can feel unclear. You may not recognize your own thoughts sometimes. You may feel disconnected from the way you used to see things. You may question your choices, your direction, and even your sense of purpose. This can create a feeling of instability, as if you are not grounded in anything solid. But this is part of the process. Growth does not happen by adding something new on top of what already exists. It often requires letting go of what no longer fits. And that can feel like losing yourself, even though it is actually the beginning of finding a version of yourself that is more aligned with who you truly are. As this process continues, it becomes important to shift the way you see what is happening. Instead of seeing fear as a warning sign, you begin to see it as a natural response to change. Instead of seeing uncertainty as a problem, you begin to understand that it is part of the transition. This shift in perspective does not remove the discomfort completely, but it changes how you respond to it. You start to realize that you are not falling behind. It may feel that way sometimes, especially when you compare yourself to others or when you look at how long it is taking to figure things out. But the truth is, everyone moves through these phases at their own pace. There is no fixed timeline for growth. There is no exact moment when everything is supposed to come together. What matters is that the process is happening, even if it is not visible yet. There is also a realization that everything is unfolding in its own time, not in a forced or controlled way, but in a natural progression that cannot be rushed. You may want answers now, you may want clarity now, but some things only become clear as you move through them. Trying to force clarity too early can create more confusion, because the understanding you are looking for has not fully developed yet. This is why it is important to let go of the idea that you need to have everything figured out. You do not need a complete plan. You do not need to know every step. You do not need to be certain about every decision. What you need is a willingness to move forward, even when things are not fully clear. That willingness creates momentum, and that momentum leads to clarity over time. As you begin to accept this, the pressure starts to ease. You stop trying to control every outcome. You stop expecting yourself to have all the answers, and instead, you start focusing on what feels right in the present moment. Not in a perfect way, but in a way that allows you to move without being stuck in overthinking. There is also a growing sense of trust that begins to develop. Not a blind trust, but a quiet understanding that you are capable of handling what comes next. Even if you do not know exactly what that is, you start to see that you have already made it through difficult phases before. You have already adapted to changes in your life. And this time is not different in that sense. It may feel new, but you are not new to growth. This trust does not remove fear completely, but it changes your relationship with it. Instead of being controlled by fear, you start to move alongside it. You acknowledge it, but you do not let it stop you. You understand that it is part of the process, not something that needs to be eliminated before you can move forward. At the same time, there is a quiet realization that holding on to what no longer fits is what creates most of the discomfort. When you try to stay the same while everything inside you is changing, it creates resistance. That resistance shows up as stress, confusion, and emotional tension. Letting go does not always mean making a big, visible change. Sometimes it means releasing certain thoughts, certain expectations, or certain attachments that are no longer aligned with who you are becoming. Letting go is not always easy, because it requires you to step away from what feels familiar, but it also creates space. Space for new ideas, new experiences, and new directions to enter your life. Without that space, growth becomes limited because there is no room for anything new to take shape. As you continue through this phase, you begin to notice that change is not something you have to chase. It is already happening. In your thoughts, in your feelings, in your awareness, it is already moving even if it is not fully visible yet. Trying to force it can create more resistance, but allowing it to unfold creates a sense of flow. This is where openness becomes important. Not in a passive way, but in a way that allows you to see possibilities without immediately rejecting them. You start to become more aware of what resonates with you and what does not. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts and feelings that guide you towards certain directions. And instead of ignoring them, you start to pay attention. This attention creates clarity over time. Not all at once, but gradually. One realization leads to another. One small shift leads to another. And before you fully notice it, you begin to move in a direction that feels more aligned with who you are becoming. There is no final moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It builds slowly, through awareness, through experience, and through a willingness to move forward even when things are not fully clear. And in that process, you begin to understand that what once felt like losing yourself was actually the beginning of finding a deeper version of who you are. The fear, the uncertainty, the confusion, all of it becomes part of a larger pattern that leads somewhere meaningful. Not in a perfect or predictable way, but in a way that reflects growth. And as you continue to move through it, you begin to see that you were never as lost as you thought. You were simply in the middle of becoming something new. And now, after everything you have just heard, there is one simple thought that stays with you. This moment is not random. The timing is not random. Out of all the things you could be doing right now, you are here listening to this at a point in your life where something inside you is already starting to shift. Maybe not loudly, maybe not in a way others can see yet, but it is happening. That quiet feeling you could not explain at the beginning, that sense that something is off, it does not feel confusing in the same way anymore. It starts to feel like a signal, a sign that you are standing at the edge of change, even if the full picture is still unclear. You started this video with questions, with a weight that did not make sense. And now, even if you do not have every answer, you have something more important. Awareness. You can see the pattern now. You can recognize the signs. You understand that what feels uncomfortable is not the end of your story. It is the part where everything begins to shift. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. You start to look at your life differently. You start to understand yourself differently. And that changes everything, even if it is only the beginning. There is something powerful about realizing that you are not lost. You are just in transition, that you are not behind. You are just moving at your own pace. That you do not need to rush to become something because you are already in the process of becoming. And this process, even with all its uncertainty, is leading somewhere. Somewhere that makes sense for you in a way that only time will fully reveal. So instead of resisting what you feel, you start to listen to it. Instead of fearing the change, you begin to accept it. Not all at once, not perfectly, but step by step. You allow yourself to move forward without needing everything to be clear. And in doing that, you create space for something new to enter your life. Something that aligns with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. And maybe, when you look back at this moment later, you will see it differently. You will realize that this was not just another video. It was a point where something inside you clicked. A moment where things started to make sense in a quiet way. A moment that helped you see your own life with a little more clarity than before. Because the truth is, not everyone would stay and listen to this until the end. Not everyone would feel this connection. Not everyone would recognize themselves in these words. But you did, and that means something. And maybe this video found you for a reason. If this message stayed with you, if even one part of it felt real to you, then take a second right now. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next message that might come to you at the exact moment you need it. Like this video so it can reach someone else who might be going through the same silent shift. And share it with anyone who feels lost. Because sometimes a single message at the right time can change everything.